Audio on demand from Vision Christian Media.
You're listening to Momentum, a show that helps men succeed in life. And as we delve into this week's topic, a reminder that some of the content may be of a sensitive nature. Now, here's your hosts, Tim and Des.
Alrighty, well, here we are. It is Momentum once again with Tim and Des, and it is so great to have you tuning in. And wherever you might be, whether that's around Australia or around the world via the podcast, hey, it's great that you can spend some time with us. And, you know, there's a lot of stuff out there you could be listening to, so we do appreciate you spending a bit of time with us today. Des, let's go straight to you, my friend. How are you this week over in there in Port Macquarie?
Yes, all good in Port Macquarie and in New South Wales. Great to be here and great to be part of Momentum. You know, it's there's not a week goes past, but we don't get, emails or somebody saying, I heard your voice in the radio, or, thank you for that talk you gave about, menopause or whatever it was. It really has helped me on my journey, and we hear that all the time. That's amazing that an older Irishman and a younger Englishman can do this, and people seem to enjoy it and get benefit from it. So that's really good. And we are a ministry. We run just on an oily rag, really, but there's so much we can do. And if you feel like donating to this ministry, please do so at the website. The website's momentumaustralia.org. You can do that there, and it's very easy to donate on the website.
Yeah. And, by supporting us, essentially what you're doing is supporting men and families all around Australia and the world, because we do exist wholly and solely. When Des and I first started Momentum, it was to help men. Really, that's the purpose behind this, was to help men in whatever way and shape, form that looks like, and whichever piece of audio that you've listened to or something that the guest has said or we've said that you've gleaned from that has helped you, that's really why we exist. And when you support Momentum, that's essentially what you're funding. So as Des said, the website, momentumaustralia.org, there is the care line number on there too, and we've put that up there for you as well, between 9 a.m. and 11 p.m, 7 days a week. You can ring and have a confidential chat with somebody. And let's be honest, sometimes as blokes, we don't feel like there's somebody in our world that we can have that conversation that we need to have. So the care line's there for you, 1-800-000 men. And of course, you can check out the YouTube channel as well. If you prefer to watch us rather than just listen, you can see us. And of course, our guests, which we'll get into in just a moment. Into this week's show, there is a well-quoted scripture in Proverbs 29, it's verse 18, that says, "Without a vision, the people perish." It's a very well-known scripture. Similarly, it was Maya Angelou who famously said, "You can't really know where you are going until you know where you have been," implying that as much as it's important to look forward, there are some benefits to having a solid grasp of your past.
And the church at large, the question is, have we ever taken the time to explore the history and the story of the church over the years, and how that might impact how we view the church and our walk of faith, especially moving forward?
Yeah, we're going to do a deep dive into the history of the church with pastor of Woodvale Baptist Church in Perth, and of course, good friend of Momentum. He's been on a couple of times, and we are so thrilled to have him back, Pastor Rob Furlong. Welcome back to Momentum.
G'day, Tim. G'day, Des. Great to be with you, and really looking forward to our conversation today.
It's always good to get you on, man. And let's be honest, I don't think we've ever had a light and fluffy conversation with you.
No.
And this is certainly not going to be one of those. So let's delve into it. I mean, church history, it sounds initially that it's going to be a little dry, but I suppose, and you guys know this, and just setting it up, for me, this kind of topic, and not that it's all about me, but it came from my kind of journey where I've been in the church world for 25 years, and only recently have I stepped out of this kind of little bubble I think that I was in, and gone, actually, there's a whole life before this that I don't really know. Before my existence of church and my idea of church, there's this whole backstory of how the church came to be today. And I've been on that journey in the last sort of 12 months. And I did kind of wonder then how many of us in Christendom have a similar experience where we've just kind of rocked up to church, we've got saved, we've given our life to Christ, but we don't actually understand the backstory of the church. And so that's, I think, where we've kind of gone, hey, let's explore this. And Rob, can I ask then, from your perspective, do you think that that's fairly common in today's church circles?
Probably more common than we realise, I think, Tim. Depending on where we come to Christ and the church tradition that we might belong to, for many people, that's the only tradition that they know. For some people, they were born into that tradition. At some point, they came to know Christ, and that's all that they've known. It's actually a good experience for us to broaden our horizons and realise that there are other Christians beyond well, just our denomination, but also actually just beyond our own local church. There's a bigger world out there of Christians.
Yeah, and you look at the broad spectrum. I can't remember how many denominations there are in the Christian church, but it's like, I think it's thousands of different denominations. It's really interesting how that church has developed from, Acts chapter 2, where, it was a brand new church. It was, on fire. It was so forth, to where we've got, through the Reformation, through all the whole history of the church, to where we are today. And it's still alive and breathing, which is amazing.
Absolutely. And I think following on from that, Des, is that there's a recognition that, okay, within those denominations, there are some expressions of belief and thought that might be different from church to church, but fundamentally, they're all united by the essentials of Christianity, which is the death and resurrection of Jesus.
Mm.
But then what you've got are the other aberrations that come out of that, and that's what we'll delve into today. And actually, it's quite relevant at the moment because there is a court case going on in Queensland, and I would say that this is a sect of Christianity. It's an aberration, but it concerns the death of a young girl who they refused medical treatment to. That's when we start to get into the dangerous stuff, and that's part of what we'll talk about today.
Yeah, that is a really interesting and current one that is frightening in many, many ways. And there are many of those sort of fringe sects and, areas of church that are dangerous, and we have to acknowledge that.
All the more reason for the discussion we're having today, actually.
Exactly right. Exactly right.
Okay. Well, I mean, let's start with Acts 2, right? Because, I mean, it's a well-known passage of Scripture about the early church. And then kind of fast forward to today, Rob, and let's start filling in some of the blanks. I mean, how did we get from Acts 2 to this one kind of body that was the church? And we all know that passage. It's almost a very idyllic picture of the early church. And now we've got these so many denominations, and you said there was thousands of different,
and it's multiple thousands,
because there's, to my knowledge, different translations of the Bible, but there's only one Bible, and so we've got all these offshoots. Let's start that journey, Rob, of how then we've ended up where we've ended up today. It's a big question, I realize. Yeah.
Maybe we start with the positive, and the positive is, okay, so we are where we are at today in the 21st century, many different denominations, as Des reminded us of. But picking up on what I said a couple of minutes ago, what we need to be looking at are what are the things that unite us. And if you look at the Acts chapter 2 model, the writer Luke mentions a number of things that kind of form the core or the basis of the church. And we talk about the early church, but let's just talk about the church generally. I think there's principles here that we would say that this is what we focus on. And that focus was on the teaching of the apostles. There was fellowship, so relationship within that body of believers. There was worship, and they centre that worship a lot by specifically talking about the breaking of bread, communion. So there's an emphasis on the death and resurrection of Jesus and prayer. And there's evangelism, the reaching out into the community. And so I think rightly, thousands of Christians over thousands of years have made the case that those are the kind of core things that make up a church and are at the focal point of our life as a church. Now, how we got to where we are today is we can't go over the whole in-depth of history, but really, from the time the church was born, 2000, just over 2,000 years ago, there's been a history, and I would put this in the context of spiritual warfare, where the devil has tried to undermine. So, for example, there was a focus on apostolic teaching, and there's some pretty important things there that are laid out in Scripture. But there's been an attack on that, and one of the most systematic attacks on apostolic teaching has been about the person of Jesus Christ, who he is. And when you undermine that, then you also undermine his salvation and his work. So this is crucial. So from there you go to the first 300 years or so of the church, and there's all this debate going on. They have various councils that counteract that, and they lay down what is orthodox teaching, and one of those big ones is the Trinity. Then you have this period where, sadly, the church over the next 1,200 years, coming up to the 1500s, really just declines into everything is elevated into the clergy, so the ministers or the priests are the only guys who can interpret the Bible. The uneducated masses have to simply accept what they're told. A lot of tradition has been encrusted on all of this. And then in around about 1515, or I think it was thereabouts, or 1518, a combative monk by the name of Martin Luther, and he was German as well, so he's got the whole mix. He has this revelation that it's not about tradition, it's not about the church saves you. There's a whole heap of stuff behind it. He's lecturing through the book of Romans, and he has this revelation from God that through the Word of God, that its salvation is vested in Jesus Christ, it's in faith alone, and that sets off the Reformation. And he nails up what has become known as the 95 Theses of the Reformation, nails it on the Wittenberg door, and boom,
Yes.
this explosion.
And from memory, it wasn't his intent to implode or explode the church. All he wanted to do was bring the church back to the fundamentals. So there was no buying indulgences and there was no paying money for salvation. It was just on faith alone. And so, but God, I guess, led to, the explosion of the church in many, many ways.
Oh, you're dead right, Des. Luther wanted to reform the church from within.
Yeah.
He did not want to blow the church apart. And it was through a series of debates and where he had to front up to the church hierarchy. And eventually they threw him out. And then from there he formed the Lutheran Church. But it was a time of history when the mood was right because you had other people questioning it. And so then the Church of England comes into being. And if you think about that, the Church of England is brought about simply because Henry VIII wanted a divorce.
Yeah, that's right.
So how many churches would we say were founded on a divorce?
Yeah, that's right.
Think about that.
And the timing is amazing because at the time that Luther was doing what he was doing, the press was being activated, and so people could get written word so much more easily than having to write it all out. And so the printing press was around at that time. People could get scripture in their hands for the first time ever. So there was all these things coming together at one time, which was all inspired by God to create what we end up now calling the church.
It was very much, if you want to use a modern term, it was a call to get back to the Bible.
Yeah.
And what Luther did was he translated the Bible into the German language so that the people could have the Bible in their hands and read it for themselves. William Tyndale was another of these great men. And at that time, he wanted to translate the Bible into the language of English. And his famous quote was something along the lines of, he said, "I will cause the poorest farm boy to understand more of the Bible than the wealthiest or most intelligent man in the world." What he was saying is, I'm going to put it in your hands, in your language, you're going to read it, and you're going to understand it.
Yeah, cool. So good, eh? Yeah.
That's a powerful moment for the church, let's be honest. And from there, I think there's been these denominations that have perhaps come about as a result of that. Let's take a short break because we're getting to the point of the middle of the show. We're going to come back and explore this some more on the other side of this break. We've got Pastor Rob Furlong with us as we explore church history on this week's Momentum. We are going to take a short break, and as we do that, as always, have a look around our website, and we'll come back real soon on Momentum, momentumaustralia.org. We'll be back with Rob Furlong in just a moment.
This is Momentum, a show that helps men succeed in life. Find out more at momentumaustralia.org.
If this program has highlighted something you'd like prayer for, we'd love to pray for you. Call 1-800-PRAY-FOR-ME. That's 1-800-772-936. It's a free call. Or text 0401 132 888.
You're listening to Momentum, a show that helps men succeed in life. Find out more at momentumaustralia.org.
Okay, welcome back to part 2 of this week's show. It is Tim and Des on Momentum, and our special guest this week is Pastor Rob Furlong from Woodvale Baptist Church in Perth, and we're talking about church history. And Rob, I mean, before we launch into the second part of the show, let's be honest, we don't hear a lot of this stuff preached from the stage, the pulpit. Again, I think a lot of us are uneducated about this unless we've done some study or gone to Bible college, that sort of thing. is there a reason why it's not preached? Is it too dry for people, do you think? Or is it not relevant to where people are moving forward today? I think people are more concerned with where we're going as opposed to where we've been. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I have no doubt there are many people who would agree with those two statements that you made, that one, history is too dry, and two, it's not relevant. And I push back against that all the time. I don't use a historical allusion every week in my preaching, but certainly when it's relevant, I do. And what we've got to do for people is, one, it's how you actually teach history. I think history is brilliant. I love it. Mm-hmm. And so it depends on how you teach it. But two, you've got to show the relevance of it.
Yeah.
Put it this way. We've all got people, and we've all met people. We've had it happen to us. You get these gentlemen who knock on your door on a Saturday morning, and they want to talk to you about Jesus. And then you get involved in the discussion, and depending on who the group is, one group might tell you that Jesus is not fully God. There's no such thing as a Trinity. Another group might tell you, oh, well, Jesus is actually one of many gods, and when the time came to save humanity, the gods all sat down and put forward their plan for salvation, and Jesus was the best plan, and everybody voted on that, and his brother Lucifer got upset and turned against him. Now, all of a sudden, this is where church history becomes relevant, because certainly in the first example, that rubbish has been going on for centuries.
Yes.
And if you aren't aware of that and aware of why the church holds to what it holds to today, I'm talking about the Christian church, you're not going to be in a position to be able to refute those guys or to take them on. So history suddenly becomes relevant. How many Christians have these people knock on their door and they go, well, I don't know.
Yes, that's right.
Or worse, they get sucked in. Do you know most of the converts into the cults are from mainline Christian churches?
Is that true?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. I would never have picked that. I would have thought it would be people from the secular world, but that's amazing. Wow.
And do you think that, Rob, is because they lack the understanding, the knowledge? So they're fed this lie and they just run with it as truth.
Absolutely. Because now, I'm actually talking here about the doctrine of the Trinity. Now, I want to preface this by saying that the doctrine of the Trinity is a very difficult doctrine to understand and get our heads around. However, when there's no other way to read Scripture than to come out and conclude the doctrine of the Trinity, which is one God in three persons, not three gods, but one God in three persons. We'll talk a little bit about it in a moment, about the different ways they've expressed it, but there's no way around it in the biblical when you actually study the Bible seriously. But we should actually teach that stuff in our pulpits, and there's a way of doing it because it's vital, it's important,
and it's fundamental. It's absolutely fundamental. Yeah. Last weekend, I actually heard Canon J. John, English Anglican minister, talk about those fundamentals of salvation, and the Trinity was right up there as front and central to the faith.
Absolutely. If you undermine the concept of the Trinity, it affects salvation seriously, because the story of salvation is that this is God's Son, who is fully God, becomes a human being, but is still fully God. So he's fully God, fully man, dies on the cross, lives a perfect life, dies on the cross, and pays the penalty for our sin. But if you make Jesus something less than that, it affects your salvation, and it also affects the capacity for us to have a relationship with God, because the Trinity is about relationship. And if God is not triune, if he does not understand relationship within the Trinity, then why would he want to have a relationship with us? Because he's not relatable.
So is there a time that we can label when that doctrine actually first came forward to that, I suppose, to the forefront like that?
Yeah. So, well, I would suggest that it's been attacked right from the beginning of the church.
Mm.
It was there in what they call a latent form, but it just became more and more full-blown as the centuries went by. But you can go back to the time of the Apostle John, who lived, as we understand it, till he was about 90-odd. So he's living towards the end of that first century AD. And there was this character running around called Cerinthus, who is considered to be the forerunner of Gnosticism. And essentially what Cerinthus believed was that Jesus was born an ordinary man. You had to keep the law to be a Christian. The world was created by a lesser God. When Jesus, who was just a man, died, the divine power came on him at his baptism. So the divine power was called Christ, but left him at the crucifixion. So Christ didn't really die. It was just Jesus the man.
Oh,
now,
wow.
Can you see some problems here?
Yes.
All of a sudden, the whole salvation story is undermined. And it's interesting, there's this story told about the Apostle John, because, you know, they had Roman bathhouses and all this sort of stuff where guys would go and have their baths. And the Apostle John was apparently taking his ablutions one day, and somebody told him that Cerinthus was also there. And John is supposedly said to have run out, yelling out, get out, that heretic is here, the roof will cave in. Get out of here while you can. So, you know, he was violently opposed to the teaching because John knew the truth.
Even as we're unpacking this, I mean, you mentioned, I think in the first part of the show, about the fact that Satan has done a good job with deceiving people and whatnot. But I mean, you listen to all of this, and one would argue that perhaps one of the biggest challenges for the church is that we are not in unity. And hearing this and all these different things, I mean, I'm not saying that we're at war either, but often a lot of us in day-to-day circles, right, we get into discussions with people of other denominations and whatever, and we start debating all of this stuff. And I'm like, are we then actually, is that a plan, a plan of the enemy to even get us squabbling down here, and then we actually forget about the bigger picture to some degree?
Oh, I'm sure that happens, and it happens in all sorts of different denominations. So you can emphasize one particular doctrine to the point of where that becomes everything that you believe, and as you say, rightly so, Tim, you lose sight of the bigger picture. Yeah. So, and that can apply to a number of doctrines that people hold to, and so it's the issue becomes, okay, let's study Scripture, let's come with an open heart to see what the Bible is saying, but there are some things we should hold loosely.
Yes. Yeah, and I guess the counter argument is that if you do have those discussions and those debates from a scriptural perspective, you learn, you grow. Yeah,
absolutely.
So both sides, it's a tension, isn't it? You know, between learning more things, discovering more of your faith, but holding firmly to what we agree on rather than what we disagree on.
Absolutely. Yeah. Something that I keep saying to our folk here at Woodvale, when we get into some of these controversial areas where people might have, you know, and even within your own church, you'll have different views from people on different areas of ministry even. So take the women in ministry issue. So I just preached on that for 4 weeks here at Woodvale. We had a great time, and recognising I've got people who are one end of the conservative spectrum, people at the other end of the spectrum, and people in between who probably have never even thought about it. But what I kept saying was, you know, folks, on this issue, this is not a salvation issue.
Yeah.
And if you hold a different view to me, or I hold a different view to you, doesn't mean you're not a Christian, and it doesn't mean that you don't believe the Bible. There are different ways of looking at this. So what I say is, in our essential beliefs, we have unity. In the non-essential beliefs, we have liberty. And in all our beliefs, we show love, which comes back to the discussion.
That's really cool. Say that again.
It's really good.
In the essential beliefs, unity. In the non-essentials, liberty. And in all our beliefs, love.
Love it. Yeah, it's great.
It's really good.
I learned that years ago, and I've used it many times. So it enables you then to have a good discussion and say, you know what, we disagree on this, but we still love each other.
But I think in this day and age as well, and we are closing in on the end of this show, so I think maybe let's try and tie this up. But I think in this day and age, let's be honest, we are in a culture, and if we're not careful, we'll adopt this in the church, but we are in a cancel culture. The disagreement and being able to hold that space with people just in, you know, general conversations, not necessarily about theology. We're in a culture where I don't agree with you, I cut you off, or I block you on social media, or, you know, you're no longer my friend, or whatever it may be. And I think we need to be very careful in the church to go, can we hold this space? And that's why I think Des and I both heard that saying and went, that's brilliant, because if we can hold that, that actually does lead to having healthy discussions, which we should be able to have. And I'm always a believer that if you hold that space in a discussion, it's either going to do one of two things. You're going to see something that you haven't seen before or thought of something and go, oh, I'd actually never thought about that. Okay, I learned something. Or it's going to be, no, it's cemented the fact that I completely disagree with that, and it's reaffirmed my own belief. Either way, I think that's a good thing. But I think the key thing is, Rob, is that you're saying we can do all of that and hold the space of love to this person that we're having a discussion with. They're not our enemy. We're just having a discussion.
Absolutely.
That's good.
And even when you're dealing with, say, it's an inflammatory word, but even if you're dealing with heresy, it's how we're going to deal with that. Like, there are certain things, there are certain teachings. I mean, Paul didn't pull any punches on some doctrines. He said, let that person be accursed. So, when it's stuff that affects the gospel, when it's stuff that is going to lead people away from God, we have to stand firm. But even there, let's be careful how we go about it.
Exactly.
Yeah. We're going to wrap up this week's show, Church History with Pastor Rob Furlong. It's been fascinating, and I think we're going to come back and do a second because there's so much more that we can explore in this space. MomentumAustralia.org is our website. I encourage you to have a look around that and maybe re-listen to this before we get into next week's show with Rob Furlong once again on church history. Rob, thanks so much for your time, mate. It's been a really great discussion.
Thanks. I enjoyed it. It's been good.
You've been listening to Momentum, a show that helps men succeed in life. For more information or to hear this week's show again, go to MomentumAustralia.org. You can also access a whole range of resources to help you on your journey and to get in touch with the team at MomentumAustralia.org. Until next time, keep moving forward with Momentum.